one of the bigger things in the hospitality space is the agentic AI. Who hasn't called in and been put on hold, and had to sit there and call at odd hours because, you needed something done, you're running late, your flight was delayed, all of that type of stuff. A guest doesn't want to have to sit there and fight with a data system that isn't responding to them. Who hasn't sit there and yelled agent at a phone system that isn't properly identifying what they're queuing? The modern AI systems are infallible. There's so many interactions where people don't even realize that they weren't talking to a human. And that's the level where we're getting at.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the STR Investing Podcast. I'm your co-host Mark Lumpkin, and today we've got two really cool guests. I actually was able to meet one of our guests out at the VRMA a couple weeks ago, a month ago now in Vegas. I know a lot of you listening in were probably there. We bumped into a lot of people from the pod there, and so it was cool to meet him in person and now have him and his team member on the podcast. Today, we're going to dive into AI. It's a hot topic. There's a lot of people always talking about it at conferences, on podcasts. We're going to try to get real in the weeds and figure out how you can leverage some of these new tools to help expand and profitize your businesses, streamline things. Really, I think the value in AI that we use in our day-to-day business is making the most of our people and maximizing their time to do what they do best. And so I'm really excited about our guests today and dive into that. So without further ado, Nick, Alex with Chetu, did I say it right? Chetu, and they've been around the space for a long time. So say hi, guys. Introduce yourself, Nick, Alex.
Yeah, hey, appreciate it, Mark. Thanks for having us on. Nick Swanson here with Chetu, and yeah, we're pretty deep in the AI space right now. Digital transformation, data management, artificial intelligence, all things that we're working on as a service provider within the hospitality space, short-term rental space, and then within the construction industry as well. So yeah, we're kind of seeing what's happening across the entire landscape, and look forward to having a good conversation about it, and kind of seeing where this leads.
Yeah, Nick. So my name's Alex, and I've been in the tech industry for a few decades, and now with Chetu, looking at the actual software side of it. It's a real interesting conversation right now when it comes to all the different industries and how AI is affecting them. So I'm our subject matter expert for the hospitality industry, and I help people understand really what is the right implementation for AI for them specifically. There's a lot of different ways where AI can improve your short-term rental, but also just the industry in general. But you have to look at it in kind of where that usage case makes sense for you. And the short-term rental space is a real unique one because while some of our clients are real big, we have offices in Vegas because almost every hotel on the Strip uses us in one shape or form. So we're partners with Oracle, Amadeus, all the big back-end platforms. We support them from a development standpoint, but we also work with startups and owner-operators. So in the short-term rental space right now, what we're seeing is an implementation of AI that's actually helping people look at what they're doing through that lens of what's going to affect the AI in a way that'll drive that business. Great example is Airbnb's algorithm. When it looks at your listings, it's looking for fresh content. It's looking for the right keywords. It's looking for things that are frequently updated. And that type of constant refresh from either getting guest interactions that's constantly posted to the site, new wording as far as what your listings are put up as, all that type of stuff that's really always been manual and required a lot of people to sit there and think about it. AI tools now are capable to go in there, take a look at what you've got, refresh it constantly so that it gets you that higher ranking based off of that new content. So those are the type of things where we're helping clients build. But when you're dealing with somebody who doesn't necessarily have the budget to build their own AI, there's the option of implementing things that we've already built for other clients. So what we offer for different industries is essentially a team of experts that'll build whatever it is you need for that industry. In the hospitality space, agentic AI is really taken over as far as that guest interaction. The ability to call in and have a natural conversation with someone that results in either them making some changes, adding an excursion, or just overall having a good user interaction. That is a real game changer when it comes to AI. And in hospitality in general, that's really the goal is enhancing that user experience. But when you're looking at short-term rental space, the idea is to get bookings, to be able to drive revenue. So the AI implementation there, what we're looking at is instances where you'll be able to understand what your model should be able to have real-time pricing, be able to go in and have those minuscule changes that result in a real ROI automated, so that you don't have to be involved in it. You don't have to sit there and micromanage it. You can set it up, configure it, have specials, any type of thing that you could do on a regular day-to-day basis yourself as an owner, you can automate to the extent where you can have it running on its own with just minimal interactions and just looking at your dashboard and reporting. So that's really where AI is offering a great benefit for people who don't have a huge budget, is the implementation of AI tools that are being built for the industry. In instances where we're not going to build something for someone, we help advise them on what are the right tools to be implementing for what it is they want to do.
Yeah, that's super cool. It's really interesting because, like you said, you've got to have the right tools, resources, and most of all, implementation in order to benefit your business. Because it could be a net negative. This is not a cure-all. This is not just like, just get AI to do it. No, you've really got to be strategic about this and find the right solution for your specific business. So I love that you guys offer and consult on basically a suite of services, right? You guys are helping people figure out what's best for their specific business and needs and then implementing that. So can we wind back a little bit? I'd love to just get like a little background from one of you guys on the company itself, right? Because the implementation of AI specifically in the short-term rental industry is very new. This is the last year or two. It's really cranked up in the last 6 months to a year. But you guys have been around for a long time. So I'd love to hear just a little background on the company and how it got started and who some of the clients are, and then how you guys started to transition into really becoming the experts on this specific topic.
Yeah, so we started 25 years ago. Our CEO, owner, founder, 176 square foot office. It was at the Fort Lauderdale airport, and over the last 25 years, it's grown to we're doing roughly 75 million a year in revenue, and have 3,000 global employees. So pretty large footprint now, with offices all across the U.S., in the UK, and then in India, where a lot of our development happens. And so if you take it back to the very beginning, 25 years ago, we're talking 2000. .com boom, right? Everybody's just trying to figure out how to, get a website, right? And then somehow leverage this new internet thing that's happening, all at once, and figure that out. And so that's kind of where we started, and throughout the years we hit these certain super cycles. That's what the experts call them, right? So you kind of had the internet. And then the next one was kind of the smartphone, and now AI, right? So if you were going to kind of break it into the three different eras, right, we had those different milestones that we've kind of had to make strategic shifts to stay current as what's happening in the marketplace, right? So we've kind of grown and adopted to the changes in technology that we see, that our clients ask for, as kind of in real time. And I think we're kind of in that position right now where we're switching from kind of that mobile app need that was in high demand, maybe 2 years ago, where everybody's like, I need an app, right? Every company wanted to have, some way, whether it was, in the hospitality space or food and beverage space, right, to have that ability for their customers to just go on the app and place an order, or book a hotel or book a short-term rental. That was kind of the need, and now it's shifting more towards business operations and kind of the back end. And what we're noticing, I think, over the last 10 years is, we've been talking digital transformation for a decade, and now that we have AI kind of in these tools that are out there, we're exposing everything that didn't get done, right? Or was done, well on a slide and briefed well in some boardroom. And then now that it's time to leverage that data or that digital transformation, AI is kind of exposing the weak spots. And that's where we can come in, kind of bridge the gap. I like to say kind of blend it all together, because, we're not going to custom build everything. We're going to, use some off-the-shelf products, some third-party products, and then kind of blend it to kind of make sure that it's the right fit for whatever the client needs. So that's kind of where we started and kind of where we're heading, and then trying to stay on top of the latest trends and emerging technologies as they're popping up every day.
Yeah, super interesting. You mentioned that everybody needed an app just a couple years ago. It felt like a long time ago, but it really wasn't. It was just a couple years ago where everyone's like, oh, do you have an app? I got to build an app. I need this to directly communicate with my clients. And so are you noticing that people are wanting AI to help streamline their operations? Is that the focus? Is it to make your operations more efficient and to cut your overhead? Or is it to make your operations like better for the client experience? What seems to be the hot reason why people are thinking implementing AI into their operations is now the priority?
So time and money are the two areas that people are asking. Where can I cut costs, right, and save money? And then where can I cut huge manual efforts and save time? Kind of the analogy I like to give is, every company, every industry, they have an accounting department, right? And the folks in accounting, whether it's accounts payable, accounts receivable, they're typically bogged down and end up doing a lot of data entry, which is a pretty low skill job, but they have a high skill set background. And so where AI would come in is to cut down on that manual data entry and allow your folks to be subject matter experts at what they're good at, right? And then start forecasting. So we're going from playing catch up all the time and getting things, into the computer and then having whatever program it is do whatever it does, and that whole cycle, right, to never really being able to forecast long term, because you're just kind of always just hanging on as especially in the accounting side, right, and other areas. So that's where we can leverage AI to expedite those things and save time and money.
And you're right. There's a lot of operators right now who are listening in, or people that manage a couple properties or manage 100, and they're thinking, yeah, I need to be specialists, and I should be spending my time talking to owners or going and getting more business or or training and teaching, not doing my books and accounting or messaging guests or dealing with those kind of really low entry level jobs that most people who are in the short-term rental space are kind of Swiss Army knives, right? It kind of is that mindset of, I'll do a little bit of everything and make this business work. I like that. We think of our business as having like Navy SEALs, and who's the sniper? Well, if you're the sniper, then that's what you need to be doing. If you're the breacher and you're the guy who breaches the door, well, that's what you need to be doing. So we want to really have specialists. Do you guys notice a big difference between the hospitality space and other industries as far as what they're looking for? Is it very unique and different, or is this kind of a broad statement across?
No, it is, because hospitality, the needs are very different than, say, retail. You've got people involved, but the actual end goal of those people are different. Somebody in retail's worried about, is this product in stock? Am I getting a good price? Can I just come in and pick it up? Whereas somebody who's going on vacation, that's not their drive. Their drive is, I want to be able to get checked in on time. I want to be able to have a good experience with my family. I want to make sure that there's some amenities there that I'm going to enjoy. So the interaction with an AI when it comes to hospitality is more about enhancing that guest experience and having them be a return guest. One interesting thing that you get in hospitality that you don't get in a lot of industries is a wealth of historical data. All of these hotels are sitting on decades of people's booking information. So they can turn around and mine that and say, all right, this person that has been coming to our resort for the last 5 years normally books in July. And all of a sudden, I didn't get that booking. A simple AI query would have been able to go in there and say, I can reach out to this person, prompt them, say, hey, are you still coming? Here's a coupon, something that'll entice them to come. Whereas they might have been going on a cruise this year and they might not have been coming to your property. So that is something that a human will never catch. It's just too much data. The ability to sit there and be granular on that is just beyond anybody's time. And AI can do that in a millisecond and give you a report saying, here's 10 people that should have booked already. So those type of tools are very unique to each industry in the way that they're needed. One of the bigger things in the hospitality space is the agentic AI. Who hasn't called in and been put on hold and had to sit there and call at odd hours because, you needed something done, you're running late, your flight was delayed, all of that type of stuff. A guest doesn't want to have to sit there and fight with a data system that isn't responding to them. Who hasn't sit there and yelled agent at a phone system that isn't properly identifying what they're queuing? The modern AI systems are infallible. There's so many interactions where people don't even realize that they weren't talking to a human. And that's the level where we're getting at. You're going to see that in another vertical that I cover is the restaurant space. Quick serve restaurants, there's various ones that are right now testing out voice AI in their drive-thrus. That is going to be commonplace in 5 years. So that trend is being pushed in every industry with AI. Where can it improve our operations? Where can it improve our ROI? Where can we have a leg up on our competition? And in the hospitality space, that's really going to be what drives it, is the fact that if my property has this first, it's going to incrementally increase my ability to have people come here rather than my competition who doesn't have any of those features. So once somebody experiences an AI tool that actually enhances a guest experience, they'll want to go back to that property, if just for the fact that it was made that much more convenient for them. So there's a lot of different ways that can be done. And it really comes down to the individual's needs. Large organizations might want to build their own model that they train in-house and have it their own walled garden tool, which is great if you've got the budget for that. But somebody who owns a website and just, has a handful of properties and is just trying to build their organization, they shouldn't have to shy away from being able to use AI tools. You're just going to have to use it in a different way. You're going to operate somebody else's tool. And at the end of the day, yeah, you're going to have to pay for some of those ancillary services, but they're going to drive revenue. And if they don't, turn them off. That's really where the short-term rental space can grow with AI without having to invest so much into building their own. Just because there are so many competitive tools out there that we can come in, take a look at what your long-term needs are and what your goals are and say, all right, you need this, this, and this. We'll configure it for you. And here you go, it's up and running. Now you only have to do a third of the work that you were doing before.
Cool. Yeah, lots to unpack there for sure. Historic data in the short-term rental industry is great. Most of these owners or property managers have a wealth of unmined historic data. So you guys are using AI to leverage to create more bookings and probably at a higher value and a higher dollar amount. You're probably direct bookings on a lot of those. And then you're using AI to increase the user experience and make sure that they're well taken care of at all hours of the day, that their answers are answered quickly and how they should be. And so it's really kind of best of both worlds, huh? It's helping you drive more revenue and helping you increase guest satisfaction. So it's really cool. I was curious what your guys' thoughts are around the difference between AI and VAs, right? A couple years ago, you were talking, Nick, about how everybody needed an app. Well, a couple years ago, the gurus were all over the internet saying you got to have VAs. They'll transform your business. They'll streamline it. They'll get those tasks that you shouldn't be doing off your plate and give them to someone else. You can train them and they can practically run your business for you, which we know is not true, but there's definitely a great place for that type of service. What's your thoughts on the difference between the two of those? Is AI going to replace VAs? Does AI need to work alongside of it? And what have you guys seen specifically in the hospitality space around that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a replacement personally, just because it's running off of data, the way that it's trained, and with the large action models, which is agentic AI, right? It's essentially an agent, right? So the workflows that you can build through the agentic AI modeling, right, versus the limitations that you have with VAs. It's the speed, the accuracy, the efficacy, right, things like that are going to, I think, replace VAs. And then just the fact that it's running 24/7, learning, training, getting smarter as it goes, right? So the more interaction it has, the more developed it becomes. We talk about it a lot that, when you first start with any type of AI, and, AI is such a generic term, to be perfectly honest, because there's so many different types of AI that are coming out now and they're where we're going to be in 2 years is kind of terrifying, to be perfectly honest. Like, are we turning into the Terminator? Like, I need to move on top of a mountain.
That's going to be my next question. Don't worry, we're going to get to that.
Yeah, where does this all lead? But I would say that at the end of the day, I think AI agentic AI, especially, and generative AI are two areas where it's really going to be a disruptor for everything. And I think we're already seeing it. We're seeing it in the marketing space a lot, right, with search engine optimization and PPC, right? So when Google and Bing and everybody turned on, their AI assistant on the search engines, right, people fell off. People had rankings, spent millions of dollars to be ranked really high on Google to get that click, to get that conversion. And then now with kind of SEO and some of these GEO, which is the one of the ways that you kind of have to attack marketing to kind of get listed, and a couple other technologies that are out there, it's kind of disrupted things, right? And I think it's going to be the same thing with the virtual assistant. And I think that's something that owner operators should be paying close attention to, as they're investing into search engine optimization and PPC ads and trying to get their inventory out in front of people, right, and get the clicks, which then drive conversion into bookings. That whole kind of ideology has changed in the last 6 to 8 months.
So you think that AI is already replacing a lot of the tasks that VAs were doing, and
I think so.
Yeah. Are you guys seeing it more cost effective than having virtual assistants? Are you guys seeing that, especially at scale, larger businesses are saving money by having these AI tools do these tasks?
It's the logical transition, because where a virtual assistant, was useful at its time because it was what was available, now the AI is taking that baton and saying, all right, I'm not just informing you of things that should be going on, I'm now going to go and do those things for you. So that's really where one is going to completely eclipse the other, because virtual assistants weren't able to take that agentic step that the AI now is doing.
So the VAs are essentially playing defense, right? They were just taking things as they were coming into them. And what you're saying is that these new AI tools that people can leverage are doing outbound. They're playing offense. They're going and making the business better.
They're actioning it, right? So that's it. So that's the difference, right? Is the action. They're performing the task. So once you've trained the agent, right, to do the workflow, is that they can actually action the task. So it's no longer just we've identified it, right? Now I've identified it and I fixed it, right? Or so they're playing both offense and defense, to be perfectly honest, right? They're literally both sides of the ball, where before it was one-sided. And I think that's going to be, we got to remember that with AI, there's still human intervention, right? At the end of the day, any good AI tool really just gives that person, that decision maker, right, the best data to make the best well-informed decision, but get them as far down the field as possible, right, before they have to make that decision, or to the right spot, and then provide the best data to make a well-informed decision. And so I think that's the key difference, right, is that it's that action that it can take to kind of get it to the next step, right, and then have the decision maker, determine what how they want to move forward.
Sure, because you've got to train the AI. The AI at this point is really only as good as the inputs and the training and how you set it up.
Yeah, garbage in, garbage out, right? So there's pre-trained models that are out there in a lot of the industries that will they're called micro models, and this is where the cost. When we start costing this stuff, right? If you just look at the amount of data centers that are being put up across the United States right now, it's absolutely astronomical, the amount of physical construction of these facilities throughout the United States, right? And it's all to support the AI initiative. And there's going to be a cost that's associated with operating AI and running data and running in the cloud, right? All of those costs they have to be calculated. The larger the model, the more data, hence the more energy. And it's probably, I think if we break it all the way down, right, energy costs are really driving factor with everything, because it takes a lot of energy to keep these data centers cool, right? So, and they're sensitive equipment, so there's going to be an expense there. And I think it'll balance out. But I think with micro models, it's a smaller investment you're not using as much data. And so you're not using as much power or taking up as much space on the server. And then private servers are another conversation that we could go down that rabbit hole if you wanted to, which is how do you protect your information so it's not training somebody else's model, right? So there's there's a lot in the architecture on the back end on how these things are set up to ensure, privacy, security, things of that nature, but then also making sure that you're managing costs, because that will be an issue. We don't do hosting, right? We're on the development side and the training side, but we partner with a lot of companies, and depending on what you're running, and depending on how much data you're putting out there and leveraging, you could be taking up a fair amount of space.
Just high level cost. If I'm an operator and I've got less than 10 properties and I need a couple of tools to help me leverage this, am I spending thousands of dollars a month or hundreds of dollars a month?
I think you'll be in the hundreds, right? The high hundreds for the most part.
Relatively cost effective if you're at small scale. And then
Yeah.
you get some economies of scale where your price per property, price per action gets less as you get more and more homes.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, because it's runs off of, at some point, right, it becomes even more cost effective when you scale. So at the core level, right, there's a basic cost of entry to just operate, right? So whether you have one property or 10 properties, right, you're paying roughly the same, even though your return is much different if you're a 10 property owner versus a one property owner. Once you start getting into that mid-market size, right, kind of, that's when it starts to balance out. And then when you get to the enterprise level, right, it's a whole different ballgame, because then you have the ability to have your own tools as well to offset. So you see a lot of the larger folks, right, they kind of run a hybrid solution where some of it's in the cloud, some of it's on-prem, because they have the ability to run local and then also into the cloud and kind of have that, but that's how they cut their costs. So it's kind of a mixture, which was weird because there was this huge push to get everybody to the cloud, right, and get everybody off of local servers. And now I think all the professionals are calling it repatriation, which I find to be a weird name. But I don't name the technology stuff. It's somebody else does. And so they're seeing more of a hybrid at the larger levels across industry, where some of it's in the cloud and then some of it's on-prem to lower those costs and manage some of that.
So local storage is actually becoming, in some instances, more cost effective than storing
100%.
And operating all these off of the cloud.
Yeah, if you're running solely off the cloud, it's it can get pretty expensive, if you're taking up a fair amount of space. But so having kind of a hybrid architecture where you're running local servers, right, and then pushing just the data that you need for that instance to get that answer, right, and then pushing it back down is significantly cheaper in the long term. And most big companies still have their old infrastructure, so it's a pretty easy lift. It's the guys on the front side, right, that are startups, right, they kind of carry the burden for that initial cost of entry because they don't have the return yet to really offset it. But I think at some point in the middle, it starts to balance out.
Yeah, interesting. All right, I'm hoping you guys can take me through two journeys here, two different paths. We'll start on path A. So path A is, I'm a property owner, an investor, a small co-host. I've got 5 properties, 10 properties, 25 properties. And I'm looking at this going, hey, I got 1 or 2 VAs working for me, and I have not leveraged AI. I've done everything myself. I do all the manual entry. I do all the guest messaging. I do all the outbound campaigns, What does that person's journey look like to then completely use your guys' systems processes to completely turn around their business? And like you said, more time, more money. What are, we don't have to dive really, really deep into this. You got to do this tool, but from a high level, what are the steps for them to systematize and leverage AI for their business? And then we'll go through path B, which is, I'm an operator with hundreds and hundreds of properties. What do I need to do? And so starting with that kind of individual investor co-host, what are the easy, immediate lifts and how should they be leveraging AI?
So for the smaller, people getting started, it's actually a little easier because you don't have that huge tech burden that a lot of these older properties have got. So someone coming in now just trying to get started, first thing you're going to look at is something that's going to shape the algorithm for you. So a tool that'll be able to get your listings out in front of more people, get you more bookings, and control what that revenue flow. That's an easy lift. But also, after you've gotten the bookings, automating the rest of the experience is actually a longer term play. But once you've got it done, things like once the guest checks out, automatically having the cleanup crew know that the guest is left, and they can come in and flip this property so that somebody that might be checking in tomorrow might be able to check in early. And then once that's possible, then sending a communication to that guest saying, hey, there's an availability now, your room's ready, blah, blah, blah. All of that type of stuff can be done by various different AI tools and implemented in a way that there'll be very little to no input from the owner, other than making some changes that they wanted to do that are specific, whether it be a promotional thing or some sort of marketing thing. Those are generally where they get to spend their quality time looking at growing the business rather than just the minutia of running the day-to-day operations. So that every level of AI can help, whether it be from improving your postings by understanding what the image content and, wording, multi-language, things that require hours by an owner, sitting there experimenting and then seeing if that makes a change. And AI can do millions of times in a second and understand what that change is historically and route itself in a way that improves those listings going forward. So when it comes to small, organizations, it really is up to them how much they want to go down the AI hole.
Yeah, it's interesting. But there's some immediate, pretty simple lifts that they should be leveraging right away. Is there a point where you're too small for this? I mean, if I have one or two properties, should I be utilizing some of these tools as well?
Well, I think one of the things that a lot of people, so not everything is AI, right? So we talk a lot about automation, right, which is AI adjacent, right? So if you look at kind of the three steps to kind of technology, right, you have, digitize, right, get everything digital, right, then automate, which is a lot of it is just simple automation. It's not even AI, it's just the workflows, right? We know that the process is we do A, we do B, we do C, like Alex was saying, right? Somebody checks out, we get a confirmation, we send it to the cleaning crew does their thing, they confirm that it's done, and it goes back to you, and then you're available, right? So that can all be automated because it's just process driven, right? So automating those simple things, right, that take a lot of time, right, is like Alex said, pretty easy lift, and so I don't think anybody's too small for that to at least automate their system, right? Just make sure everything's digital and automated, the follow-up emails, right, the all those little things that have to be done could just be simply put into an automation tool and you're off and running, right? And some of them have a pretty low cost of entry, so if you look at like Salesforce has a whole hospitality suite of products, so it's your client management, it's your outreach, it's kind of how you track a lot of their stuff. And then for a single operator, the licensing fees aren't that high. It's a few $100s to a month to operate, so a Salesforce license, and once you get past, say, 10, 15, 20 employees, then all of a sudden, the licensing fee starts to add up. But if you're small, just one license, we're Salesforce partners, so we do a lot of work within that, that platform. And so it's one of those things where, you can leverage a lot of those tools that are already built into that ecosystem, right, and that are designed for hospitality, and then be able to leverage the automations that are in there to take time off your plate.
Cool. I love that. On day one, you want to be thinking about how you can maximize your time to grow your business. And so that's super interesting. Thank you, guys. What about the second path? All right. Beat number two. I'm a huge operator. We've got hundreds of employees, thousands of properties. We're looking at this thing going, holy shit, we're way late to the party. We've missed the boat on this. We've got 40 VAs. We send messages manually. Like, where does somebody like that get started? What's the next steps for them?
So that's a little bit.
They're out there. I know, Alex. You ran into them at the VRMA, man. They're out there. There are people listening to this pod going, "Holy shit, man! I've done all this through the sweat of my brow, and I can't take it anymore. And what do I do?"
Yeah, they're not much different, right? Again, it's so they're at a point where they have a lot of data, right? So what we need to do is we need to get a central source of truth. And so when you talk about AI, the central source of truth is kind of that's the brain of it all, right? So we have to get all that data. My assumption and experience with a lot of these type of level operators is they have kind of bolted on products as they grow, right? As we're scaling, we're just going to keep bolting on another piece of software, another piece of software, another piece of software. And so what's happened is all their data has become siloed, right? So all their accounting stuff sits in their QuickBooks, right? All their client and customer information sits in some type of CRM, whether it's HubSpot or Salesforce or whatever they're using. Google, Microsoft has tools, right? It could be any of them. And then their property management stuff is happening over here, right? They're another software with more data that's siloed, and none of them, left hand doesn't know what right hand's doing, right? So what we want to do is we want to come in, start peeling back the layers and go, okay, what is it that you have? How much are you using from each tool, right? And that's very common is we buy a license for software A and we're only using it for these 3 features, right? So we're using 20%, but we're paying 100%, right? And so it's like, okay, let's get with, and we call it technical debt, right? That's kind of what it is. Like, let's consolidate your technical debt. Let's figure out where you're spending your money on all your licenses. Then let's go ahead and consolidate your data into one central source of truth. And now we can actually come up with an architecture and say, okay, we're going to use these products and this is what the outcome is going to be. And then this is how we're going to architect it. And then this is the roadmap going forward. So it's not overwhelming, right? But it's really getting an understanding of what all have you bolted on over the years and how much technical debt are you carrying from that. And then let's go ahead, eliminate some of that, get all your data consolidated, and then leverage the tools that are out there to make you guys better, stronger, faster, and more efficient.
All right, here's a scary question. We're going to wrap this thing up, guys. Thank you for that. Super interesting. What you touched on it, Nick. Where's this go, man? What's your wildest predictions from both of you? I mean, my wildest predictions, I'll put it out there, that in my lifetime, no one's working. It's completely optional. The technology's already there. The Tesla robot comes out. I know everybody's like, oh, the trades are safe. The trades are safe. I saw a machine the other day that will strip a roof and put a roof on all by itself in like 2.5 hours, the work that it would take 30 people to do in 2 days. And so I don't believe the trades are safe. I don't think anyone will have jobs. I think we'll live in iRobot. I think we'll all be Will Smith going to run around screaming, going, those robots are going to kill us. But anyways, what are your guys' predictions here?
Yeah. So in my opinion, the future of AI, especially in the hospitality industry, is going to be as a tool that enhances the guest experience. And from the management aspect, it's essentially going to be a coworker. You're going to come in, you're going to be able to pull up the AI. It's going to be able to tell you what operations were going on, what current issues you're dealing with, and allow you to be the one that tells it whether or not it should be taking those tasks or not. You can set that threshold at a point where it works for you. Should I give the AI the ability to manage housekeeping? Why not? It could probably get staffing to a point where it's efficient and the output would actually end up being better. So allowing the AI to come in and take over parts of operations doesn't mean that you're losing staff. It means you're using staff more efficiently. There might be optimist bots walking around, but generally in the guest areas, you're probably not going to see them too much. But back office operations, food prep, folding towels, things that can be done back of the house without having to have it necessarily be in everybody's face, because future generations are going to become increasingly more comfortable with it, but older generations are going to be wary of it. So that transition is going to have to be done in a way so that people who want to have an experience with an AI can work themselves into it. Whereas people who are risk averse to that and afraid of Terminators can have that experience not be for them. So allowing guests to be able to tailor that is going to be one thing. But as an organization, using an AI to improve your internal processes to the point where you're more efficient and management's experience is improved, user experience is improved, that's where AI is going to be pushing the boundaries. at least in hospitality. Other spaces, manufacturing, I completely agree. I don't see humans being involved in manufacturing plants in the next decade. But when it comes to human interaction, it's going to be really hard to take the human out of that loop.
Agreed. Yep, couldn't agree more. People like to do business with other people, with people they like, and with people that are familiar and friendly. So it makes total sense. What about you, Nick? What's your wild prediction here?
Well, so I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but my favorite color is tinfoil. So you can go ahead and make your own assumptions. But I think in my lifetime, going on 45, I'll probably end up seeing a lot of things being replaced by AI and or other type of robotics and things of that nature. I think the human element, it's an interesting thought process because humans develop it, right? And at the end of the day, not everybody has the same ethical standards as the next guy, right? So we'll kind of see how it plays out. And right now it's the Wild West. It's not really regulated. There's not a lot of legislation, around it, things of that nature. So I think, it's going to come down to kind of how it's controlled and legislated and, the regulatory agencies around it. I think, but I think it's going to be more Jarvis from Iron Man than Terminator, right? I think that's kind of where we're going to end up and, kind of just have that instant real live feedback that's out there in the ether. But I still think we're going to be doing things. I think we'll innovate and create new jobs, right?
Cool,
so
man.
we may not be doing what we're doing today.
Yeah,
I don't think it's what we're doing today, but I think it's things that, that are just new that we haven't even thought of yet.
Cool. I love it.
And I'll be living on a mountain.
I hope we end up with
I'll be living on a
Jarvis,
mountain.
Terminator.
Yeah, I'll be living on a mountain though.
There you go, man. We might all need to
When
be
you see
living
me-
on a mountain when the robots take
When you
over.
see me
So-
throw this cell phone in the lake, that's when you know it's over.
All right, good. Give us a heads up when you know, so we know to get out of town too. But yeah, guys, it was great to have you on. Thank you for helping us kind of walk through this. I know this is a topic that's a little bit taboo, right? Like you said, Nick. So many people just say AI. That doesn't necessarily. It's not a blanket statement, right? There's automations, there's workflows, there's different tools and resources. There's outbound campaigns. There's photo editing. There's so many resources that people can leverage. It's really about just starting with one and then starting to expedite and do more and more and more to save you time and help you grow.
That's the number one thing that we consult on, right? Is let's find one use case, right? Because like Alex said, a lot of people are risk adverse or, early adoption versus late adoption. We can use all these different models to kind of gauge, people's interest. But at the end of the day, find one use case within your organization or your operation, right? And see if it helps you save time and money. If you can answer both of those questions with a yes after the adoption, then you move on to that next big thing and scale it, slowly. And, eventually you'll start seeing the fruits of it. I think most people will, but it's definitely more than ChatGPT and just, prompt and response. There's a lot of stuff out there, but yeah, I would say that, it's definitely going to disrupt. And I think it's an exciting time to kind of be in the industry where there is this much potential for disruption, good or bad, right? So, time will tell how it all comes out. But I think at the end of the day, I think we're all going to be a little bit smarter and a little bit more efficient just by leveraging the tools as they come out to market.
I love that. How do people get a hold of you, man? They're listening in. What's the best way for people to reach out?
Chetu.com, CHETU.com. Check us out on our website.
I'm sure we'll see Alex at the next event too, so you can bump into him when you see him working the floor.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really easy. I'm Alex R at Chetu, so people call me A-Rod. It's an easy acronym to remember.
Cool. Alex, if you want to share your email, we'll drop it in the show notes, guys. We'll drop in their website in the show notes. But anyways, Alex, Nick, thanks for coming on talking AI. Maybe in 6 months we'll circle back and talk about some new AI stuff as well, as this is happening so rapidly, changing so quickly.
Yeah, I definitely think that. Yeah, every 6 months would probably be a different conversation. You're probably dead on.
Definitely. So anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in to the STR Investing Podcast. Please go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. We will catch you next Monday for the Monday Market Data Report, and then next Friday for another guest speaker. Thanks again, everybody.